inside our Azure Function app, we will be adding a new Azure function. I will name that Grocery API. This function will have an HTTP trigger, so we will add that. Authorization level looks good. Let me add that. First thing first, we need to add the DB context using dependency injection. We will have to remove static keyword from class as well as the function itself. Now this time I want to give our functions more meaningful name like create grocery. So rather than run, we can rename that to create grocery. When we are creating, that won't be a get, it will only be a post request. Next is the route here. With this naming, the default route will be API/create grocery. But in case of RESTful API, there should be only one route and we will perform different operations. So let me set a generic route here and I will call this grocery list. We will be changing the logs here to creating grocery list item and we do not need any name. We should be receiving an object of grocery item underscore absurd inside the request. So let's deserialize that. When we are deserializing here, we know the type that we expect is grocery item underscore absurd. We will add the using statement and rather than dynamic data, this will be grocery item underscore absurd. With that, we can create a model of grocery item and add that to the database. So right here, we will create a new variable grocery item is equal to new grocery item and we will populate the name which will be inside data.name. We do not want to initialize the created date and the ID because if you examine grocery item, we are setting both of them right here. So let me close that. Once that is done, we just need to add grocery item to our database and save the changes. When we return the result back, we can create a custom response or we can just return the grocery item itself. Perfect, this looks good for creating a grocery item. Let's continue in the next video. Let me switch back to the snippets and inside section 6, I have given the snippet to create grocery table. Open that up. It has the same fields that we have added in our grocery item. Let me copy them and we will switch back to SQL Server. So far we are working with the local DB. So inside that local DB that we have, let me paste the script and let me run that. Perfect. I'll also create that table inside the Azure database that we have. So Control N, paste that and execute. So in both of the places, we will have the tables. Let's make sure of that. And perfect, looks good. Now that the table is created, we can run our application and see the new function. Perfect, you can see create grocery. We have the post method right here. In order to test if our API is working as expected, we will have to switch to Postman. Here we will change from get to post and let me copy the URL. We will paste that here. Inside body, we will change that to raw and we will change that to JSON. The only parameter that create expects is the name, so we can populate that. We can pass name is equal to and let's say tomatoes. Let's send this request and see what happens. Great, you can see the response. It was created successfully and we have all the 3 fields populated. Let's go back to our SQL Server and we are using the local database. So let me examine the results and great. Our create function is working as expected. With that, let's continue working on the other function. Now that our create grocery is looking good, let me copy that and I will paste that one more time. The next function that I want to work on is get grocery. So we will change the name. Let me stop the application. The route name will still be the same, but this will be a get request. Here we want to retrieve all of the groceries from database. So let me change the log here, and we do not have any body. Let me remove that. We just want to retrieve and return back. So when we are returning back, we can use our db grocery items and convert them to a list. Now, of course, you can convert this to a DTO in a real-world application, but whatever you want to return, you can return directly using Azure function like this. We will copy the get grocery, paste it one more time, and we will do get grocery by ID. Let's give it the same name. It will be a get request, but this time the route will also have an ID parameter, so we can write that here. Now when you write a parameter here, you will also have to create a variable in the parameter list. This will be a string ID because the ID that we have is a GUID. Based on that ID, we need to retrieve and return back. So we'll change the log and then we will retrieve based on the ID using first.default, save that in the item. If item is null, then we will return not found, else we will return the item itself. So with this, our get grocery and get grocery by ID are looking good. Now you notice one thing, we are working on REST functions on the same object. That's why I have added multiple functions inside the same function file. That is completely fine because this will keep things together. With that, let's run the application and see what happens. We are running the web application as well, but we are not using that right now. So perfect. Right here you can see we have create grocery, get grocery, and get grocery by ID. But you can see the route name is the same, which is grocery list as we want. Let's try to run this and see what happens. Let me switch back to the Postman. The URL is the same if we want to retrieve all the grocery item. But first let me create one more here. Let me add mango. And perfect, mango is created. Now let me switch back to the get request and let's retrieve all the grocery list. Great, it retrieves mango and tomatoes. Now if we want to retrieve just one, let's copy the ID here and we'll have a /, paste that here. Let's send it. Great, so you can see both get grocery and get grocery by ID are working as expected. For the last two methods that we have, which is update and delete, I want you guys to pause the video and try it out yourself. That is pretty straightforward. So pause the video and give that a try. Okay, I hope you guys were able to complete all the API methods in this function. But if not, let me show you what we have to do. Let's copy what we have for creating a grocery and we will paste that 2 more times. So one for update and one for delete. We will change the function name to update grocery. Let me stop the application and this will be a put request. We will change the logs to updating grocery list item. Now when we have to update, we first need to retrieve that from the database. So we can copy the 3 lines from get grocery by ID and paste them here. We need to retrieve the ID here and we will receive that in the parameters. So we will update the path there and we will add a string ID. Once we retrieve the new data that was updated inside the grocery item, then we can update the existing item that we have right here. So this one, let me just call that updated data. And right here, we will check if not string.is null or empty. If the updated data.name is not null or empty, then we want to update the item.name to be updated data.name. Then rather than add, we will just be updating the item. So update and we pass the item here. When we return back, we will pass the updated item. The last one is delete. Let's change the name and the type will be delete here. The route, we need to retrieve the ID. Let's add that. And the parameter, string ID. We will update the logs here, delete grocery list item, and we need to first retrieve the item that we have to delete. So let's go back up and copy these 3 lines to retrieve the grocery item, and we will paste that right here. We do not need any request body, so let's remove that. We just have to delete the item. So _db.groceryitems.remove, we will remove the item. If that is not null, save the changes and just return OK. So here it will be OK result. With that, both the method looks good. Let me double check the update. Here, this should be not, because if the string is not null or empty, then we want to update. We can also move the changes inside the if method like that. Let's run our project and test update and delete. Perfect, we have the methods here. Let's go back to our Postman. Right here, let's try the put request, and for the same ID, we will change that to mango1. Let's hit the send button, and that's working. If we go back to SQL Server and execute that, you will notice that the item has been updated to mango1. Then let me go back to the Postman, and we need to try the delete request where we will be passing the ID. Of course, we can remove the body, that's not needed. Let's hit the send button. We receive a 200 OK, and if we execute it again, mango will be gone. So with that, we have seen all the CRUD operations using Azure Function. And the RESTful API, everything is within one single Azure function. Now, even though the focus of this course is Azure Function, I like to give somewhat complete solution. That's why I have given controllers and views that you can add in the main application to integrate with the grocery item function and see everything together. So let me open up the grocery controller, copy everything. Let's create a new controller in the web project inside Azure Function folder. We will have to stop the application. Let's add that here. Empty controller. We will change the name to grocery controller. And let's add that. Here, make sure you copy everything with the public grocery controller and paste the code that I have provided. Once you do that, the only other thing that is needed is to create the model. So we can copy the grocery item from here, paste it in the models folder. Because I do not like to share the code, that's why I want to keep them separated. You will have to change the namespace here. So copy the project name. We will close this, paste it here. In there, we have the models folder. Let's add the using statement inside the controller. We will do the same for JSON convert. Let's scroll down and make sure there are no errors here. Here we are just using an HTTP client for all the requests. We have delete async, get async, put async, and get async by ID here, and post async. If you scroll down, I have the URL right here. If this URL is different than what you have for the grocery list function, then make sure to change the localhost port. Also, I'm using HTTP client here, but in a real application, I would suggest you to use the iHTTP client factory. And that way you can use that with dependency injection. So with that, our controller looks good. If we go back to the snippets, I have also provided the views. So you just need to create a folder name inside views with the same name as the controller, which is grocery. And inside that folder, we will open in File Explorer. Let's go back to the other folder, copy all the views from there, and we will paste them right here. Perfect, all of them got added. Last change that we have to do is inside layout. Let's add a link to the grocery controller. We do not need the privacy tab. We will change that to index action of grocery controller. With these changes, let's run both the projects one more time. We forgot to change the text here, but if we go to privacy, it will retrieve all of the grocery list. We can create new grocery. Let me add mango. We can edit them. We can delete them. You can see how easy it is to integrate CRUD operations in our application, but basically our main application is just calling our Azure functions to do all the interaction. So with that, our Azure function looks great. That is all that we had in Azure Function.